Hello, thank you for joining us today. I am Dr. Smith. I am the Director of Course Design over here at the Center for Teaching and Learning. I'm very excited that you all could join us today. For those who couldn't, I'm excited that you can listen to this asynchronously. Before I begin, do you have any questions of anything that you've heard so far? Okay. All right, so since there are no questions, we'll look briefly at this glossary of terms. I'm not going to go into detail or at least exuberant detail regarding the glossary of terms. Just know that we do have institutional terms that you'll hear quite often. So that'll give you an opportunity to understand what we mean when we send emails that may have some initials or may use words that you're not that clear with. You'll have this glossary that you can keep close by, maybe on your desk or on your desktop. So we'll make sure that you get that. And it's about 20 or so terms. So it's not a ridiculous amount of terms that you'll have to get acclimated to. It's a very reasonable amount. And it's particularly industry standard. We're not using terms that are much more different than what you'll see at any other integrative health or any other online university. So first, I'd like to get into the relationship that we'll have, that the subject experts and the Center for Teaching and Learning instructional designers, as well as our digital learning architects. And you'll hear us use that term. Digital learning architects are also instructional designers, but they are more strategic and ensuring that there's a solid learning infrastructure in place. So this really will guide you into understanding how you're going to go about designing your courses, because I understand it can be a big undertaking, especially when you don't know where you're to go next. So this will really help you.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, it's taking a while for my slide to load. You can just tell me yes once you're able to see the slide. If you're able to see the slide, okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so this is the SME guide. One of our digital learning architects, David Dumont, developed this in conjunction with a few other instructional design experts in the Center for Teaching and Learning. And in contrast to a traditional face-to-face course, the development of an online course in the School of Naturopathic Medicine will be a collaborative effort. It'll be joining the content expertise of a course author or even several course authors with the education expertise of the learning designer, whether they're a digital learning designer or if they're instructional designer. Those, they do pretty much the same positions here. So we'll be using those words interchangeably quite often. The subject matter expert, which is you, will be selected by your academic department leader. It could be your academic director, it could be the deans or the associate deans. And you're to serve just as the content expert. That's just bringing the experience with the subject matter and your effective learning strategies to the course. So the learning designer provides expertise in course design and development in adult and distance education. So whether IDs or DLAs, they will always either hold a master's degree or a doctoral degree. So depending on the complexity of the course design. Additional personnel sometimes might also be a part of the development team, such as programmers, graphic artists, videographers, multimedia specialists, etc. All right. You guys have any questions before we move forward? Okay, great. So let's look at the process in a little bit more detail. The first step is for the subject matter expert to meet with the learning designer, initially to identify and understand course objectives, blueprint, the course structure and development of your assessment strategies, or how you're going to assess or test your students. Next, the subject matter expert will generate, like Whit said earlier, your raw content for the course with your corresponding activities and your aligned objectives. The team will then reconvene to review the materials that you have drafted or created or developed. And the information that is covered in these initial meetings is also included in the SME guide in a little bit more detail, which we'll review in about 2 more slides. So the learning designer also works with you to draft a course development schedule that will outline what we agree upon as far as your milestones for each component of the course development process. And these initial meetings orient the course author, which is you, the SME, subject matter expert, to the online course development process. The learning designer is also oriented to the course by studying your syllabus that you provide and any other relevant course materials that you may share. When appropriate, with the help of the learning designers, you guys will spend time gaining the technical skills, and you'll also be exposed to some additional andragogical strategies that are kind of necessary to develop and teach in a distance learning environment. So subject experts are introduced to the issues also involved in authoring, teaching online courses, and you guys are also given access to a collection of examples, templates, and other resources for your use during the course design and development process. So as you and the learning designer work through the draft content and put it into its online format, the learning designer will comment, question, make suggestions pertaining to some of the content. However, the designers cannot change or alter your content. They cannot change or alter your learning activities or your assessment strategies, but they will review it, make comments, and potentially ask questions. So the edited course materials are then shared with you for review and revision. And this is typically an iterative process with team members exchanging materials and revisions, sometimes multiple times as items are finalized. So lastly, the SME and design team will finalize the course materials, either concentrating on the second half of the lessons or on the design and integration of your student learning activities and assessment strategies into the course. At this point, they may engage additional team members as needed. This is where your multimedia, your photographers, your programmers may come into play. And you and the course designer will develop initially module 1 of your course. And you will review this with all the stakeholders, including your program director, prior to moving on and developing your remaining courses. We wouldn't want you to get too far into your course development process to realize that we may be slightly off track. So module 1 is important, and we typically have what's called a first third meeting during module 1. And that's just to make sure that you are delivering a product that you promised to deliver in your agreement with your program. Let's see. So halfway through your development, your QA will be performed. A midway review kind of is to ensure that the course is providing high quality instructional presentation to learners. Your QA process is not necessarily going to be instructional design. Your QA person is not looking at the design of the course, they're looking at its presentation. So they'll be checking for spelling and anything that just doesn't make sense. And so they'll look at that halfway through and they'll send us a report, yourself and your instructional designer, to look at and make any changes, updates, and revisions as suggested or recommended. There are some institutional mandates, but as far as course content, you are the subject matter experts, and any advice or recommendations that are provided by QA or your ID or the Center for Teaching and Learning are usually aligned with industry best practices and good, strong, sound instructional design. However, there are suggestions and recommendations to help improve the quality of your course. So ideally, in the perfect world, another QA will be performed at the conclusion of the course development prior to it being published and going out to the public. So once a course has been developed and open for learners, the development process is not really yet complete. Every course goes through various stages of your formative and summative evaluations. Therefore, you're going to need minor revisions. They're typically made each trimester, and they sometimes require substantial revisions, which mean you may have to involve another process very similar to what you went through the first time to get the course developed. And this is just all depending on the course content, programmatic recommendations, industry standards change, licensure requirements change, things of that nature. So the original development team will typically support you in all your course revisions. But in some cases, however, if you feel confident in your skills, we have had some faculty who are very advanced and they possess the technical skills, and they may be able to make revisions on their own. And also, I want to introduce to you that we are using the Quality Matters standards and guidelines, and I'll cover a little bit of that in this next slide. Before I do that, are there any questions? All right, great. So Quality Matters. We are a Quality Matters institution. All of our instruction designers and digital learning architects are either currently going through or have achieved the Quality Matters peer reviewer certification. Now, Quality Matters is a rubric that's based on research into high quality courses. They're used to guide our course development process. So at the School of Naturopathic Medicine, that online, hybrid, and any web-assisted courses that you may be the subject expert on, they will be held to those Quality Matters standards. And the quality assurance team will review these courses based on those standards before the course is approved to be launched. So the Quality Matters rubric is a set of 8 general standards and 43 specific standards. And they are just used to evaluate the design of your online and blended or hybrid or flipped courses. So this rubric is complete with annotations that explain the application of the standards and its relationship among them. So here in this slide, you can see the list of standards that we follow. Although it's too small, we'll make sure that you get that over email. But if you follow these standards while designing your course or working with your course designer, they will be very appreciative that you have looked over this rubric. So we'll be sure that you guys get this in advance so that it can make your life much easier. So I'll go ahead and summarize. I'm going to review with you one more time the process. I know you're not going to get it, this time around, but we'll make sure you have it in writing as well. So the milestones as far as your course development, it initially starts with a course request. So at the beginning of each trimester, I will send out a request to all program directors for a list of new courses or revisions to be developed for the next upcoming trimester. In a perfect world, we would be 2 trimesters in advance, but it's really hard to forecast that. The program director would then assign which of the subject matter experts will be used for the course. And then the program director will send a list of the courses and the SMEs to the design team. And this is where I will then assign an ID for each course. And I'll also request a Canvas course development shelf from our digital operations team. Now, the operations team then creates the Canvas course, a shell from a template, and that is pretty much what we're going to work in as far as designing your course. You're going to always design in a shell, but that shell is going to be copied over into the permanent course. So that gives us an opportunity to make mistakes and to mess up without anyone knowing about it. So keep in mind that your assigned ID will will meet with the program director and yourself in a kind of a pre-kickoff meeting, especially in the beginning of your course design or your course development. You may want to have a pre-kickoff meeting, which will guide you through the initial stages of completing the course request form. So next is the kickoff meeting. Your ID will set up the kickoff meeting with you and the program director. They will send you the SME guide again if you don't have it or can't locate it. You'll get that just again. It just comes as part of the course development process. And that'll get to you in advance of the initial kickoff meeting, along with any questions that the ID may have had while looking over your course request form. And then lastly, your ID would just go ahead and schedule the kickoff meeting with you and your program director. Now, during the kickoff meeting, this is where you guys would get into developing the actual course outline. You don't have to have content right then and there because we'll already have learning objectives and outcomes. So we can kind of get into the discussion of how we're going to align your course. How are your learning objectives going to speak to your learning activities, and how are they going to speak to your assessments? They all have to align, and you'll get used to hearing that word alignment a lot. So the ID will then identify if you may need any media production, such as audio, video, graphic, any multimedia interactions that you may need. And then we'll go ahead and locate a multimedia specialist to help create that for you. Or sometimes we can even do it in-house, depends on how complex it is. Now, just as a side note, course media may be produced by you, like your videos, if you do a video lecture or something like that. And over here at the CTL, we can then make your media more interactive or make it more engaging. And that includes your PowerPoints, your voiceover PowerPoints. If that is the only way that you can kind of create multimedia, you'll then send that over to the CTL and we'll turn that into an engagement activity for you. All course materials should be and will be branded with MUIH's School of Naturopathic Medicine brands. It's always going to be authored by MUIH SME, and your PowerPoints are going to use a MUIH template, which you will have access to. That way we can have consistency across the courses. So lastly, your ID, your SME, and your program director will sign off on milestone 1 when the course outline is complete. Now, sometimes more than one meeting might be necessary to complete the course outline. So don't be discouraged if after your kickoff meeting you walk away and you still don't have your course structure. That is not uncommon, especially if you're not able to establish alignment during your kickoff meeting. Okay, milestone 2. This may be what we call the first third of the course. But this is where I discussed and I said we want you guys to create module 1 just to make sure that we are all on the same page. Make sure alignment looks good. Make sure that your program director or your leadership is on the right track with what you envisioned the course to be. And make sure that we're delivering a high quality, instructionally sound course. And that's what milestone 2 is really going to focus on, that module 1. And then milestone 3 is we're going to pretty much repeat the process for the second, for what we did before. You're going to, once we got module 1 nailed down, you'll go ahead and get up to about 50% of your course, because this is where we're going to send it off for a QA review. It's good to get a QA review halfway through the course, because like I said, we don't want you to get too far into course development and there's something weird happening, like you've misspelled there 20 times. And then, you know, it's better to catch it halfway through than to have to go through the whole course and realize that there has been spelled wrong for 14 weeks. So that's just a vague example. But QA is done halfway, and ideally we like it to be done at the completion of the course if time permits. And lastly, milestone 4, that's where you're just going to solidify all of your content. Any multimedia is going to be turned in at this time. Any QA reviews, anything like that is going to be done. Everything is just going to be tightened up at this point. Before it goes to your final QA and you're done with your last module, your entire team will reconvene. They'll take a look at your entire course, and any changes or updates that are needed will be done at that time. Usually they're extremely minimal because your program has been in the loop the entire time of the course development process. So it's usually just an opportunity to get together and see what the entire course looks like once it's all put together. So it is a detailed process, but don't worry, you have the design team to guide you along throughout your entire experience. All right, so that's pretty much the conclusion. We're going to make sure that you get this guide in writing so that you can have it to refer to and to look over. And I highly recommend you look over the Quality Matters rubric as well as the glossary of terms, and then look over the SME guide. And if you get a head start on that, day one will be much easier for you, and you'll be off on the right foot. So before I turn this over to the next presenter,